rest of the boardroom?
I talked to some of the alternate jurors, and they said that I had the opportunity to speak to some of the alternate jurors, and they were very impressed by Dr. Patel and by Dr. Sadoff and the state's presentation and how we literally rebutted all the evidence that the defense experts put on. They put on a witness who was extremely disorganized, who sort of stretched the truth about things, forgetful, just really not doing the best work that I've seen. And I think the jurors were impressed that they could see our state's public servants at the Maryland Department of Health and Hygiene coming and testifying in a case like this, and the amount of work and effort they put in a very important case in our state.
And how did you sort of react when you heard what the actual verdict was? What goes through your head?
You know, I don't think I ever doubted that we would be here where we are today, but it was a very long journey, and I knew to get here I'd have to put in a lot of work and have to prove, even though it wasn't our burden, that I'd have to prove to our jurors that what Mr. Ramos was doing was revenge, that it wasn't mental health disorder. And I think the problem is that a lot of people hear this crime and think, he must have been crazy. You must be crazy to commit this kind of crime. But he wasn't. It was all about revenge. So I was extremely relieved and pleased with the jury's verdict.
Ms. Lightus, whoever that was can go ahead. Ms. Lightus, what felt different in the courtroom today in comparison with the past few days of the 3 weeks of the trial?
I think that once the case switched to the state's case, there was a bit of a relief. We got to the heart of the matter. We talked about the crime and the conduct at the time of the actions, which is what Maryland's law is. It focuses on the conduct of the defendant at the moment that he's committing the crime. And up until that point, there was a lot of emphasis on his childhood or his young adulthood, and that he was a loner, and really an effort to feel sorry for the defendant, that he lived this lonely existence. But that was not what it was about. It was about how he was thinking and behaving on the day of. So it was a huge relief to know that the jury bought into that issue, recognized it right away, and that's what they went with.
Ms. Lightus, you've been working on this case for nearly 2.5 years now, maybe even longer. How does it feel to know that it's nearly done?
Yes. I wish I could say that I could go on vacation, but I'm about to try another very big case on August 16th by myself, a homicide case. But I can tell you I'm going to sleep better at night. The burden of knowing that I was going to work for the families and that they were depending on me was great, but it was one that I was willing to do and happy to do. It's my privilege to be able to do these kinds of cases. These are the kinds of cases that I have done for the last 25 years of my life. My co-counsel, Mr. Russell's here, if we can get him over here.
If I may ask
Yes.
a question while we come down.
Yeah. Put that down.
The
Yeah.
defendant has the opportunity to have a new trial, file for that in 10 days. How confident are you that the state will be able to hold up if that actually
Sure.
happens?
So a motion for new trial, he's going to have to show that there was some grave error, procedural or legal error that happened during the trial, and they have not raised such an error. So we're very confident that that won't happen.
Do you expect him to try?
Well, I think that that's a matter of course. He'll file a motion to modify, he'll file an appeal, he may even file a motion for post-conviction relief. But really, the bulk of the work has been done now. And I think that we tried a very clean trial. The judge was very careful and cautious. And Mr. Ramos had his day in court, and the jury has ultimately spoken and held him criminally responsible.
Ms. Lightus, it's striking that in the case that took so long and had such an impact that the defense's closing argument, they tried to make an emotional argument, but it really just came down to, do you pass the test with very simple criteria? And they didn't have it. I'm not putting that in the right words, but it really is such an emotional case for the family. You won the case just based on logic, very simple logic.
Well, I think that Mr. Russell and I made it clear to the jury what this case was about. It wasn't about saying strange things in a lawsuit. It wasn't about being odd or eccentric. It was about understanding and appreciating the criminality of his behavior and conforming his conduct. So we just pointed out to the jurors time and time again the ways that he did that, in ways big and small. Things as simple as going to the bank, going to the grocery store, getting his oil changed in his car. He was living his daily life every day. He was taking great care of his cat. He just had an agenda. And his agenda was, when it was the right time, he was going to attack the Capital Gazette. And he was patient. And I think that came through to the jurors, that he was willing to wait. And that was just not evidence that the defense could ever overcome or hope to overcome. And so what you saw today in the defense's closing was an attack on some of the most excellent expert witnesses that I've ever had the privilege of putting on. Dr. Patel, Dr. Cowan, Dr. Bender, and Dr. Sadoff. And I feel extremely fortunate that we have that level of competent forensic scientists, forensic psychiatrists rather, that we can call as expert witnesses in these kind of cases. We're very fortunate.
Can we hear from Mr. Russell, because we have the family talking about it.
Yes.
Mr. Russell?
Absolutely.
I'll hold that for you.
Thank you.
What's your reaction? What message to the microphone? What message does this send?
Well, I think the most important thing is that this hopefully begins to give some closure and some opportunity to heal for the families and the people who have survived this horrible event. That's been our motivating factor the entire time, is just trying to, in whatever way we can, help those people get back to a sense of normal, and to make sure that justice is served in this situation. And that's been what's motivated us the entire time.
Thank you. We have the family coming out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. I'm going to let everybody come and join.
Everybody, as they speak, could they identify themselves or be identified by you?
Yeah, a little bit more. Make room.
I don't know how to retire.
Hey, I'm tall.
Please don't. I'm going to be able to do Mom.
Sorry. I'm sorry.
My name is Andrea Chambly. I'm the widow of John McNamara, and I'm here with Oz and John Sanfelice, and Jennifer Donatelli, and Paul Gillespie, and Cindy Rittenauer, Rebecca's sister, Rachel Pasella, Montana and Summer Geimer, Dana Winters Ranger, and Erica Fishman.
Could you give us your reaction to the video?
Thank you to the police and the state's attorneys.
Yes.
Thank you to all the first responders. God bless them.
Yeah. I think when people talk about the 5 victims of this violent crime, you can look around and see there's a lot more than 5. It ripples all over the county, the state, and the country. There are a lot of people who couldn't be here today because they have to choke on their own words when they talk about this horrific crime. I was waiting to die. I was praying. And at a certain point, I remembered that I needed to start praying for John and not just myself. That's what Celine explained. Those are words of the survivor hiding under a desk during the Capital Gazette mass shooting tragedy. No, no, no. Those were the words of a victim who did not survive. She asked to stay alive long enough to see the 5-year-old that was waiting for her at home. She didn't make it. The crime was monstrous. Today we thank the jury for their service, for listening to the dizzying testimony, for viewing the horrific videos, for looking at the monstrous pictures. Our government representatives secure themselves in a building like the one that Jared Ramos decided he would not breach. He knew that the guards at the door, the metal detectors, the armed security, and the safe room for officials meant that he would not be successful. He knew he would be successful in a local business, a newspaper. It's time our government officials protect more than just themselves. Dangerous men with easy access to firearms should not be able to murder us in our newsrooms, in our offices, in our yoga studios, in our movie theaters, in our high schools, and in our elementary schools. These crimes can happen in any town and in every town. It can happen anywhere as long as dangerous people have easy access to firearms. I call on our government officials to protect us as well as they protect themselves, and not to require that every building in the country be fortified with multi-million-dollar protective barricades to enter. Instead, I call on our officials to keep firearms out of the hands of dangerous people. I call on our governor, who vetoed background checks, and all of our public servants at all levels to step up and do what other public servants around the world have been able to do. Protect their constituents, their fellow citizens, and their countrymen safe from dangerous gun violence. Even with the verdict today, our fight is not over until we do all that we can to prevent gun violence. Thank you all for being here.
You're wearing red, white, and blue. Tell us what it was like to sit through this trial and what it feels like now that you have a verdict.
Well, we talked about wearing red, but we started talking about it when most of us were already on the road. So I guess we were all just synced in our thoughts. We wanted to wear red to show our solidarity with each other, with the people who helped save the survivors, with the jury, and with all of you who report the news every day. Black, white, and red all over.
God bless the jury.
Yeah, do any of you have a reaction to them taking just 1 hour after hearing 12 days of testimony, just 1 hour to come up with their verdict?
They were very smart.
It didn't, if you watched the evidence, you watched the trial, you saw that it was obvious that this man was a monster who needed to be put away permanently. And that's what they've done. We'll all sleep better tonight knowing that people like Jared Ramos are off the street. Again, I want to thank the police and state's attorneys for what they've done. 3 hard years. 3 hard years. We've suffered. And they put an end to our suffering. Thank you.
What's your name, sir?
And your name?
John Samples, I'm Celine's dad.
Mrs. Fishman, you want to-
I'd just like to add, John's exactly right about the weight of the evidence. I'm really glad I live in a country where we don't just throw people away who commit these horrible crimes. We give them a fair trial, and I don't begrudge any of it. I'm so glad he had competent attorneys who put aside their own feelings, I'm sure, and gave him the full and fair defense that he got. But the truth is they had no evidence to show that he couldn't understand what he was doing was criminal, or that he couldn't stop himself from doing it. He clearly displayed that he was criminally responsible.
Thank you to Dr. Sadoff and thank you to Dr. Patel for making it so obvious that this man was criminally responsible.
Mrs. Fishman, did you
Yeah,
want to say something?
Erica
does.
wants to say something.
Yes, thank you for coming here, and I would like to thank all juries and the judge, attorneys, and first responders, everybody helping us and supporting us. That's very thankful. I'm really appreciate that, and when I buried my husband. I put Constitution book in his pocket because I hoping there is justice. And today, that Justice Day, I'm really glad for that. And as he said, you know, like it's terrifying, very painful 3 years passed, and finally my poor husband's soul have a little rest. And thank you so much.
Thank you. Could you identify yourself?
I just wanted to say thank you to the state's attorney and to the police. And one thing that I've noticed sort of in experiencing this trial over the last 2 to 3 weeks is the same thing I noticed right after the shooting, which is the strength of the community that is around us here and their willingness to support us. We've had people who have been bringing us breakfast and lunch every day, who've been making sure we're all taken care of. And I'm just always very impressed by just how wonderfully supportive the Annapolis community is of us, and I'm also greatly appreciative of that support. And I also would like to just recognize my editor who left the paper recently, Rick Hutzel, who saw us through the last pretty much 3 years of professional hell. And I'd also like to thank my current editor at the Capital Gazette, Brandy Patalico, who is now pretty much on her own in putting that paper out, and she is incredible.
Press on. Paul Gillespie, you were a witness, you were a survivor, you were shot narrowly pellets missed your head. What are your thoughts right now?
I'm glad it's over. I'm glad that he is going to jail, because he deserves to go to jail. He ruined a lot of lives and continued to ruin them, and now hopefully he won't be able to ruin them anymore.
Does anyone, I don't know if you can, but I've never seen members of a jury come out and get a spontaneous round of applause, so obviously it wasn't planned. Did anyone speak to what you were thinking and what just...
As they were walking out and we were all applauding, I just thought it was incredible that I had 3 or 4 of them come up and shake my hand as they were walking by. So they knew, you know, I think they probably known for a while that, you know, he needs to go to jail.
When you saw the verdict came in so quickly, did you kind of know how it was going to come out?
I might have saw a few smiles on a few jurors' faces. I
mean, I guess when you hear that the verdict was coming.
Oh yeah, we rushed back over here as quickly as we could get here.
Did you take it as a good sign?
Yes. I thought it was awesome. I mean, you know, they had to know. I mean, you know, even with all these weeks of testimony and stuff, I think they, you know, kind of knew what he'd done, and he wasn't crazy.
Is there anyone else who wants to say anything?
Answer any questions. My name's Summerlee Geimer. I'm Wendy Winter's youngest child. I'm here with my sister today. My other 2 siblings couldn't be here, but we are all glad that at least some of our family could witness a fair trial, and we are so grateful to the state's attorney and everyone in the offices and all the first responders and everyone who testified and had the courage to get up there and tell their story, and especially to the jury who had to see what the survivors saw. And they saw some very horrible, harrowing images and videos. And it felt a lot like reliving her death for the first days. But I'm glad that we're able to see this through. And we're just very grateful for the efforts of everyone that had to be here for this.
One of the legacies that the state's attorney said was the legacy of your mom. Can you talk about what you want the legacy of this trial to be?
Yes, I do believe the legacy of Wendy Winters should live on. I hope that her name may be the one that lives in infancy instead of the defendant. I do not believe that he should live on as a name that needs to be remembered. I cannot wait to forget his name.
Wendy saved my life.
Truly a hero. She saved my daughter's life too.
I can, yeah. Touching on Wendy, when we got in there and I had heard, what happened being described, I almost burst into tears because there's no way I'm going to be able to, there's no words that I can say to say how much I believe that Wendy is a true hero, especially, grabbing that trash can and running to go to protect my sister. Hearing that absolutely broke me. And when I didn't know what to expect coming back when I found that the jury had been called back, had called us back within an hour. I didn't know what to expect. I've never been in any kind of situation like this before. I don't think any of us really, but when I got in there and I heard everything that happened, it just a huge sigh of relief. You could hear it throughout the courtroom, but you could also feel it physically to know that, like how I can finally let my sister start to rest in peace and could just think about all the good times that I had instead of having to relive this horrible tragedy over and over again.
Can you say your name one more time?
It's Cindy Rittenauer.
Can you spell your last name?
It's Ritteneur.
I would like to say something. My name is Oz Sanfelice. I'm Celine Sanfelice's mother. I'm by no means a good speech person like my daughter is, but I want to say that this horrible experience has put us in a club that nobody wanted to be a part of, but unfortunately we're a part of this club. And in the end, once all this is over and the sadness goes away, not that we'll ever forget it, but we have developed some very, very close relationships that can maybe help us heal. And that's what we need to do now. We need to move on, forget about this court business, and just heal. And I wish that for everybody.
God bless Ann Lightner. God bless the police who got there so quick and saved my daughter's life.
Thank you all. Keep on keeping on.
I know those bricks are hard.
A little tricky on my old knees, but God bless Mr. Russell on his hard work.
Okay.
All right. Bar's ready.